But over in the US, Donald Trump is not going to let Americans forget about the lies that we were all told during the COVID pandemic. The Trump administration has overhauled the official covid.gov website into a website that reads lab leak, displaying evidence that COVID came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And the website also names Anthony Fauci as a person who wanted to cover this up. And it points out how damaging lockdowns were to not only the economy, but the mental and physical health of Americans. Now, this, of course, would have been better 5 years ago, but I love that Trump has done this. It is an important reminder that we should not forget what we all went through 5 years ago, and it's important that it's out there.
No, look, it really is. And you know, just to what we were discussing earlier, I mean, with the lockdowns in general, if you look at the US, it was states like Florida and Texas that did the least, and states like California and New York that did the most in terms of lockdowns, but their death outcomes are actually the same. So these extremely destructive policies were not effective, and yet they are extremely socially and economically damaging. The same is true in Europe. If you look at Sweden, that country ended up with the lowest excess deaths in all of Europe, and yet it's the only country that did not do a lockdown. So again, you know, it does suggest quite obviously to anyone who's, you know, who has an IQ over 50 that lockdowns were not particularly effective and yet were extremely destructive. So look, it's great the Trump administration has put that up finally. And the issue of the lab leak too, I mean, how extraordinary. You know, that was the obvious explanation from the start, right? You had this virus leak in the only city in China where there was a viral institute that actually looked at viruses like that, like COVID, and yet people were like, oh no, it definitely didn't come from the lab.
Not possible.
It goes to show you the power of propaganda. It goes to show you the power of propaganda. The whole mainstream media basically fell in line behind that nonsense.
Absolutely.
And Anthony Fauci, who you mentioned, I mean, he commissioned reach which was, you know, meant to say that a lab leak was impossible. Of course, now we know that was all propaganda. It was all corruption, and it's so great that's all come out. The sad thing about all this is that a big chunk of the population, you know, have basically lost total respect for so-called experts. You know, in the health departments, you know, health authorities, scientists, they've seen how corrupt the whole process can be. And this is, you know, this is a bit scary because if there's actually a serious pandemic next time, and in my view, COVID should not have been considered a serious pandemic, but if there's a real pandemic, then no one's going to believe what we're told. That's a
exactly
problem.
Right. Absolutely. Well, we have to look at those countries like Sweden that you mentioned and other states in the US that didn't lock down and had better or the same outcomes. That has to be a lesson or something we can take away for next time, when there is a next time, which could be more serious than COVID. But Chief Economist at the IPA, Adam Creighton, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us on Power Hour. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having me.